Okay, so here you go. This is the all-encompassing DA Olympiad guide. And of course, this is going to be, a few of these things are going to be slightly out of date, but I'll tell you if they're out of date so you can actually know and, play based off that. So first off, I'm going to look at a video here. This is an old video. This is from December 5th, 2016. This is one of the original Olympiad videos from DA, which means it's not going to be that it's not going to be perfect gameplay, but there's definitely things that you can look at that are interesting. And it's when you're looking at learning DA, a lot of the time you can take things from a beginner DA and understand them a little bit more easily than a more experienced DA. Okay, so what do you notice here? DA, what he's trying to do, what Lucia is trying to do here is Lucia is trying to get close before he casts the talisman. But he has to cast at 2 seconds because obviously if the talisman isn't casted at 0, the DA is going to win. He just casts faster, right? So he has to cast at 2, and the DA can move away and start his cast from over here. And this is what you really want. Now, optimally, you cast at the same time from a distance, but of course, good players aren't necessarily going to let you cast at the same time when you're at distance. So you can end up casting like this, where yours is just a little bit later, which means he's going to close a little bit of this gap. He's going to get to like here and you're here, but that's fine. If he's here and you're here, then you can like circle around the pillar that way, and he's circling around this way, and you can basically totally cuck him. He's really going to have almost no chance of actually getting to you. So the further away you are when you cast, the better. So he's casting from ways away. Now Lucia's going to take the inside route. This is what Necros want to be doing. A lot of them will take the outside route like this, and that's not what they want to be doing, but a lot of people do that, and it's a mistake. If he takes the inside route, he's going to get inside of you. He's going to get over there, obviously. Hold on. How do I change this? There you go. Okay, so he's going to get in here, and you're going to be here. See, this is why you play a little bit scrolled in. You want to hit, if you hit page up once, right? Or page down, you're going to zoom out, right? Page down once, twice, and then the third time, I believe, you go first person, and then you're zoomed out once, and then you're zoomed out twice. You want to be on zoom 1, like not the furthest out, but the mid zoom, because there's pillars up behind you coming out of the ceiling that you're going to hit. And also when you're zoomed in closer, it's much easier to see this guy here, so you can juke back and forth around this pillar. And that's a lot of the time what you're going to end up doing. When this guy gets close to you, you juke around the pillar. Now, if the thing is, it really depends. If he comes around here and tries to chase you like that, then you can move back over and you can kite around. However, a lot of them will try and run back and forth both ways here and get you 5 debuffed. And if that's happening, you just want to be trying to juke around this pillar. But as soon as he comes to the other side, as soon as he's here, that's when you can be moving elsewhere. So as soon as he comes and commits to running around there, that's when you can move over here and create the distance that makes it easier for you to dodge the 5 debuffs. So you always have to be aware of that. So what's he going to do here? AI is going to run actually onto the other side, and Lucia's not really going to do very much. Okay. There, Lucia committed to the right side, and he's going to be able to easily move off to the left. And at this point, it's already basically over. As soon as you get to one pillar and he's at the other, it's over. There's really no way for him to close that gap within 10 seconds. And as soon as the time is out, this fight's already over. So he turns on Blue Wolf to make sure he can get the fastest sphere, and he wins it. So next one, it's going to be against Merc. He UDs early. That's to UD the pet. This is something you shouldn't be doing. But again, this is an inexperienced DA. It's just to make sure that Merc can't kill his pet. Because it's tough to actually kill a Necro or any summoner if you don't have your pet alive, and a Necro can easily just turn and kill your pet. But you want to be quick enough to do this on your own. If a Necro stops and starts snooking your pet, you want to be able to UD your pet yourself in the middle of the fight, not this early. Now, what does Merc do here? Merc actually runs up, and then he runs away to this pillar. What he's trying to do is he's trying to get a talisman advantage. He's hoping that this baits Juster to pop his own talisman, his own guard talisman, and then he'll be at the other pillar. This is a somewhat valid strategy, but most of the people you play against aren't going to fall for this, and neither does Juster here. Let's call him Fabulous because that's his actual name. So now Merc's pushing up, but as soon as you're in this situation here and the DA hasn't popped his talisman, you pretty much just win, like, as a DA, because the DA, you're not obligated to pop your talisman until he pops his talisman, right? So if he pushes at you, if he pops his talisman here and pushes at you, you just pop it later. You've got a huge like advantage in the talisman timing. He's gonna have to repop his, then you repop yours, and you're in a very good spot. So this is a very shitty situation for Merc to be in, and there's no reason for Justo to be popping any talismans until Merc pops his. There he's gonna pop it here. I think he might have popped this first talisman early though. I think Merc might not have popped this talisman from behind the initial pillar, and Juster did, which means Merc could have a talisman advantage here. I'm not sure if he does. I think he doesn't actually, and you just wait it out and it's over. Right, so this is DA versus Necro, obviously. Let's look at DA versus Necro again. Alright, so Doubleganger tries to get as close as possible. Not able to get very close, just juking around the pillar. Again, you shouldn't be eating your pet like this. You should be using pet cancel. Panther cancel, that is. And, I mean, at this point, it's over, right? So you can see how this is going. This is exactly how the DA versus Necro matchup works. Now, if we look at another matchup here, let's take a look at, let's say DA versus DA or DA versus Destroyer. This is a good matchup. Okay, so what are you trying to do, DA versus Destroyer? The thing is, you want to be... So the old strategy was to not have your pet out. This is the old strategy. You don't have your pet out because what can happen when you have your pet out is the Destro can stun your pet with Armor Crush, and that Armor Crush can lower him pretty quickly. So what you want to be doing as a DA against the Destro, don't worry about Armor Crush. I don't think that's important, especially currently on NA at least, where you don't have -12 con. It's even harder for a Destro to get into limits. Do not worry about Armor Crush. Just don't put on Vengeance, or not Vengeance, Reflect Damage. Do not put this on. As long as you don't have that, you can summon your pet, cancel him with it once, and let it die. Just let it die. You'll be able to resummon it a little bit later. It's not important. You can just let your pet die. It's no big deal. The main goal is to make sure he doesn't get into limits while he still has Guts up. And then once Guts is down, then you go and you fear him into the wall and you kill him. So what are you trying to do here? You're trying to kite as much as possible. Again, you want to cancel because cancel... The most likely skill for cancel to take out is actually Windwalk, like significantly more likely than a lot of other skills. So if I show you this, cancel's right here, right? Both of these are going to show you the exact same thing, right? Classic 1.0 cancel 60% takes out Windwalk. Classic, I believe this is 2.0, 70% takes out Windwalk. They take out Windwalk a ridiculous percentage of the time. So what do you want to be doing? You want to be double canceling with Panther and with, preferably double canceling with the Panther and with Touch of Death, so that you're almost guaranteed to take out his Windwalk. And if you take out his Windwalk and hit him with Entangle, the fight's already over. Even if he rushes to you, he won't be able to get a stun off before you get out of range if he's slowed that hard. It's just simply not going to work. So you're in a very good spot if you can do that, or even if you land Entangle in general. So what you're generally trying to do is spamming, kiting a bit. You have Fortitude on and Blue Wolf to stop the stuns. It's going to give you about 65% stun resist, so you shouldn't get stunned very often, if ever. And you're kiting back and fearing and entangling or hamstringing him as much as possible. Now, the one thing you want to realize is once he starts to get close to you, a lot of the time you need to UD. Vengeance is very good, obviously. Normal UD, obviously, also very good because he can fear you, and that Destro fear lands at a very high rate. It's like a 90% land rate, okay? So, when the Destro gets close, you want to be making sure that you're not letting him fear you and then land a bunch of stuns, right? So what's he going to do here? He's going to be kiting back. He tries to create distance at the start of the fight, similar to DA versus Necro. You don't want to be next to him at the start of the fight. In this case, it's because you don't want him hitting you to do damage to you, but also to lower himself, because if he hits you with Armor Crush, that's doing self-damage to himself, and you don't want that. So he creates some distance and pops guard. He's going to catch Hoodlum. He's trying to hit the fear before that guard goes off, and now they're both guard up, so he's going to touch a death. This is like the correct gameplay. Touch a death as soon as guard's up. Then he's going to run away, pop a second guard talisman. Again, he's just trying to wait out guts. It's 60 seconds, so this is 20 seconds of delay. Right? Then what's he going to do? Both guards are coming out, so he goes into a corner and he equips Majestic. And it might seem weird to equip Majestic. However, it makes sure that when he gets feared, which Hoodlum will be able to do for free in this situation, Hoodlum will be able to fear him essentially for free in this corner. There's nothing he can do about it. When he gets feared, assuming he does, he won't be stunned in that fear because he's going to have 90% stun resist with Majestic on and with Fortitude on, and he's also got some epics. So he's going to have like 90% stun resist. He's not going to get stunned. So if he UDs here, he's going to take a bit of damage because even through Vengeance, if you have robes on, you're taking a lot of damage. However, he's not going to get stunned. So once he comes out of that fear, he's going to be free to land some debuffs. However, if he's got Blue Wolf on, he'll take less damage, but he's going to be stunned potentially for a very long time because he doesn't have sufficient stun resist to be sure that he's not going to be stunned. So he comes into this corner, puts on Majestic, and you'll notice he does Vengeance. It's because Vengeance is a stronger UD than UD. Gives you more stats. So Vengeance is what you want to be popping here, not UD. And he's trying to kite away. There's the fear that comes out. So he's feared for 3 seconds, but this doesn't do much. You can see Hoodlum's getting pretty low, though. He's getting a lot of armor crushes off, and you got to be careful on that. But it's just because he's not landed a debuff yet, And Hoodlum has 70% debuff resist, but you're going to land one eventually with 90% land rate skills. So there's the first land. And actually, Guts is almost out. I think Guts only probably has about 15-20 seconds left right now. Probably about 15 seconds in this scenario. Now he's out of Vengeance, and he has to be very careful here, because if he gets stunned, he can actually get 100 to 0'd incredibly quickly. So in this situation, you probably either switch sets, maybe you UD. It's very, very dangerous to not be UDing, because look, he's just 2k damage. One more hit, if it does a lot of damage, like a high damage hit, and the spread is gonna kill him, right? You have to be very careful. But he's feels like here, I guess, that he can wait out Guts because he's probably got a timer going. He probably knows, or someone's telling him that's watching. He probably knows exactly when Guts is going down. So he feels like he can run away until Guts is out. Guts should be out here, and he's just gonna land the fear. And then when you're fearing someone, he's just going to fear him. And, optimally you pull off the DC set, or you put on the DC set and you go for the resummon, so it's a little bit faster. But no matter what, without plus 12 wit, it doesn't matter how you resummon it. You're not going to resummon before that fear is out. So it's definitely something to realize there on the NA servers. By the time you cast that Panther summon, his fear is going to be off. Okay, and he can run away. So he's going to be able to get into here. On Innova servers where you have plus 12 wit, the way it works is if you have a cast speed set on, so DC or even Majestic with 15% cast speed, you can fear, summon, and fear, and he'll stay permanently feared. So in this situation, your best bet, fear, summon, fear, if you're on Innova servers with a robe set on, and that's how you're going to get this. But with a heavy set on, doesn't have quite the timing correctly. The one thing he's trying to do, though, is like the reason he stayed so far away there was in case Hoodlum got out. He didn't want to be here with Hoodlum here, and he fails that fear, and he just, loses instantly. So he's playing it a little bit safe, but I think you could probably have a cast speed set on. And what's he going to do here? He's going to wait back here. Now, one of the things you can do in this situation here is instead of waiting out here like this, you can begin the resummon of your Panther and send your current Panther in to cancel him. And why you want to begin the resummon is because you don't want him at somewhat low HP lowering himself on armor crush on your Panther, right? So you make sure that by the time your cancel goes off, you're already beginning or almost done the resummon, and he's only going to get one armor crush off. And that's just going to give you further potential advantage, taking out further buffs that he can use on you. Because what's going to end up happening, Destro Fear, by the way, is a 60-second cooldown. So if you're in a lot of these situations, a lot of the time people don't realize that it's such a long cooldown, and they're going to wait outside the base, and it's actually going to give the Destro a huge advantage because he's going to be in here, and his fear is going to come off cooldown, and his fear is how he wins, right? So you're going to run in there, and you're going to try and fear him. the Destro will be able to fear you as you fear him. If you both, if you run in there on him, you'll both get fear off. Hopefully you both land it and you come out of it, and then you fear him again and he's fucked, right? But definitely, optimally, you don't really want him to have that fear up if you can help it. Now, one of the other things you can do in this situation is you can UD Talisman, just to give yourself a little bit more survivability in case something goes wrong, in case he lands fear and you don't, and then he stuns you. You're hoping to survive through that stun lock that he's going to try and get you in. But he's just going to run in here, and Hoodlum's away from the corner. Because he's away from the corner, Merc can fear him from here. But if he's in the corner, then he has to come in and fear him from there, and that's where you lose. So that's just a mess up by Hoodlum, and that's going to be the game, right? Okay, next up. Here's going to be the same matchup. And you'll see how this one works. So here's guard. He's in Majestic to begin with, which is questionable because, again, he's taking like 2k damage. Yeah, that's 2k damage in that stun. Hoodlum can do a shit ton of damage with these stuns, but he gets pretty lucky there by landing that fear that early. If he doesn't land that fear and Hoodlum gets another rotation off, he's going to be very low health and he's going to be very uncomfortable. So definitely would not recommend being in Majestic in this situation where you're popping guard talismans. Now, why is he in Majestic? What is the reasoning for it? I think the most likely reasoning for it is to retain a little bit of extra max mana, because against Destros you can occasionally run low on your mana and have some trouble actually killing him at the end of the fight. But I don't think that's necessarily relevant. If you play the matchup well, you're not going to need that mana, very, very importantly. Now, the other thing I'll recognize here is that against DA, he is taking Zerk. He is taking Zerk, and this is something you want to be clicking off in the case that he gets you feared and he's starting to kind of DPS you down pretty heavily, or you get stun locked. You can click it off to give yourself a little bit more tankiness, and this is something that's kind of a micro advantage, but it's definitely something that's won me fights before. You get hit with a fear from a Necro or something like that, or another DA, or you get stun locked by a Destro. If you're in bad armor and you're expecting the stun lock to actually last for a little bit, you can definitely click off that Zerk just to give yourself, again, a little bit more survivability. But the reason he's got it is because he wants the extra move speed. He wants to be able to kite a little bit more easily, and that's definitely the right choice. So here he's trying to spam fear him. You really want to land hamstring in these situations. If a Destro gets hamstringed, he's basically fucked. Okay, so now Hoodlum pops a guard, and because Merc has arena advantage, arena control here, he can just run back across and wait that 10 seconds. This is the importance of arena control. In every matchup, arena control is very important, so you can have time to kite back when those talismans do get popped. So at this point, Hoodlum's already stopping chasing because it's been, 30 seconds, I believe? Yeah, it's been about 30 seconds at this point, and he doesn't feel like he can actually catch Merc here, which is interesting. Maybe he gets hit by a hamstring debuff, and I'm not seeing it. That would make a lot of sense, because, again, hamstring is incredibly strong against Destros. It really destroys any chance they have of actually catching you. Yeah, he does get hit by hamstring there, and I guess he probably has his core down, and that's why he's not chasing, because he realizes he's not going to chase him and actually catch him. He's basically already resigned to the fact that he's going to have to do this fear battle from inside of his base here. Now in this case, Hoodlum has a lot more HP, which is most likely why you saw Merc send the Panther in, because Hoodlum isn't he's not in danger of letting Hoodlum get into Zealot Frenzy range by sending in the Panther and getting armor crushed once or twice, because Hoodlum's at a much higher health percentage, and he pops UD Talisman on it, partially for the Panther so it doesn't just die, and partially for himself so that he can push in and fear, and again have a little bit of extra protection when he pushes into fear. So there's the cancel. This time Hoodlum's in the right spot, which means they do both get fear off. But now Merc can run back in, and it's basically over. There's no real recourse for Merc to, or for Hoodlum to do anything there. Okay, now I'll show you a mistake that's being made here. Hold on. No, I'll focus on that a little bit later, actually. Let's look at DA versus Destro a little bit more here. Um, Actually, I don't think there's anything else really to talk about when it comes to DA versus Destro, but let's look at this one. Oh, this is a relevant matchup because in this one, the Destro is actually going to get into Zealot Frenzy, and this is something you can actually deal with if you have Vengeance up still, because Guts is a 70% resist. Zealot is an 80% resist. It's not actually that much more. The difference is you're taking a shit ton of damage through Zealot, so you need to be aware of that. However, if you do get, against the Destro and he gets into Zealot, as long as you can pop, as long as you can pop Vengeance, again, you're stronger of your UDs. You're not in that bad of a spot to potentially try and run away. Of course, it's not great, but you're going to see what he does here. So there's the Touch of Death because they're both in guard. He's going to re-guard here. Hoodlum re-guards as well. He's going to land the Fear, actually, as Hoodlum is re-guarding, which is something that's, like, very important to be able to hit there. Just finding the right timing. He's going to get back into the back of the base here, and now he's going to UD, I believe, in this back corner. Yeah, see, this is exactly what you want to be doing in these situations. You get in that back corner, you get as much distance as possible as you can possibly get until Hoodlum gets to him here, until the Destro gets to you. And when that happens, when the Destro gets close, you UD, and that means that he's not going to die while he's getting stunned here. However, because he's only got Majestic on, and because he forgot to put Fortitude on, which is very important, he's going to get chain stunned here until Hoodlum is in Zealot Frenzy, and this is where it starts to get a little bit dangerous. This is where it starts to get uncomfortable, right? Now, what's he going to do? That Zealot Frenzy gets popped, and he's going to Vengeance right away here, I think, right? UD's out. There's the Vengeance, okay? So UD, you actually take a lot more damage through UD compared to through Vengeance. Just something to think about. But he's going to Vengeance, and he's going to be kiting, and he's going to go Fear, Entangle, and then he's going to heal himself, right? He's just trying to Fear. He's trying to get a debuff off and then heal himself, and there's the debuff. And now he wants to create some space. He's probably going to click off Vengeance here at some point. Yeah, there you go. And he's going to run to the back wall. Same thing as before. This time he should probably have a UD Talisman on, ready to cast it. When he gets close, he's actually going to cast the Panther. Again, he goes against the back wall. This time he has Fortitude on, and there he gets pretty lucky that Fear landed. Like, pretty lucky that Fear landed, because he was just about to get feared by Hoodlum as well. Now, the important thing, one of the things to notice here is that he's hit stop on his Panther. This is relevant against Destros when they're not lowered yet. However, it's probably just a force of habit in this situation, because the only reason not to attack is to prevent him from getting into Zealot. However, if he's already in Zealot, then you don't need to prevent him getting into it. You can just auto attack him down and try and get something done with it. So I'm guessing that's a force of habit, but he's going to get him, perma-feared there afterwards anyways, and he's going to be in a good situation. So that's the Destro, or DA versus Destro matchup. Now, if we're looking at DA versus DA, there's should be one or two. Now, one of the things about DA versus DA is it gets very metagame. It gets very metagamey. So if I look at this video here from me, this is going to be versus turn on, and this is on my actual first day of Olympiad on DA. I've never played DA here before, but I have practiced outside of Olympiad. I've practiced my debuff, my 5 debuffs. So I'm not like completely clueless, and in fact most DAs are pretty shitty at 5 debuffing, so if you're good at it you can get a lot done. So you're both going to pop guards here. I have all my talismans on my second bar, and most people don't have this, which means I'm able to pop off guard 1 and pop on Bam Talisman, which gives me a slight advantage in this situation. Now on NA servers, because your Fear and your Hamstring are attack speed based, you really want an attack speed rune with a dagger. Now on classic Innova servers, on 4-game servers, your Fear is cast speed based and your Entangle is attack speed based. So you want a dagger, of course. However, you want a cast speed dagger, and you want a cast speed set, because that gives you, I've tested it, gives you more, even though your Entangle, which you're using twice during this debuff break, situation, and you're stunning him, shield stun, so you're using 3 attack speed based skills. Because your Fear is cast speed based, you actually do cast faster with a cast speed rune and with a cast speed set compared to anything attack speed based, because attack speed is less significant in terms of your ability to buff it. If you were able to get 15% attack speed off of a set, it would probably be a little bit different. But you can get 15% cast speed, which is much more significant than something like a Doom Light set with +3 dex, which is like not really actually that great. So what's your sequence here to get 5 debuffs? It's going to be Hamstring, Chain, Panther debuff, Shield Stun, Hamstring. That's 5, and then you Fear right here. Okay, now this is the exact order: Hamstring, Chain, and as soon as you hit Chain, because it's got a little bit of a cast time and because you've got that little bit of cooldown after Chain, you're instantly spamming Panther debuff, and then you're spamming Shield Stun, and then you're Hamstring, and then you're Fearing. And this is going to take about 3.5 seconds. Now the important thing to realize here, and this is relevant for the DA versus Necro matchup as well, on the NA servers, Hamstring casts ridiculously quickly, and so does Fear. Okay, so you have to be very aware of that. I think DA can actually out 5 debuff a Necro if you do it correctly. So if you remember back to the beginning of the video where I was telling you that DA is just, on most arenas, DA is just trying to avoid Necros and run around pillars and shit and stay away, I think you can actually win straight up by 5 debuffing them, and if you can out 5 debuff a Necro, it's a 100% win rate matchup. I mean, even with avoiding, it should be, 80-90%. In theory, you can always avoid them for 20 seconds. However, in reality, occasionally they're going to catch you. But if you can 5 debuff them, you should always be winning. All right, I'll head back to that matchup in a second. So what's the sequence? Hamstring, Chain, Panther, Dark Claw, Shield Stun, Hamstring, and then you Fear, okay? Now, what he's going to do to me here is he's going to do what a lot of DAs try and do, and he starts with Touch of Death. However, Touch of Death is a lot slower than starting with Hamstring. It's a lot slower, which means as soon as he Touch of Deaths me, I know I basically already won this matchup. Like, it's already over. He has no chance. He's not going to win that if he starts with Touch of Death. So if you ever fight against someone that starts with Touch of Death, you should feel very comfortable that you win the fight, or you should win the fight based on that starting point. Okay. Now here's DA versus DA again. I mentioned that DA versus DA gets very metagamey, and so does Necro versus Necro. That's because in both matchups, what you're trying to do the first few times you play each other is you're trying to 5 debuff each other. You're trying to hit each other with 5 debuffs faster than the other and gain that advantage in your, in your matchup against this player. If you can 5 debuff faster, you have an advantage. However, once you figure out you can or cannot 5 debuff someone, it starts to get pretty metagamey. So I think I've beaten Turn On here twice now to 5 debuffs, and he's trying to metagame. He's not going to try and 5 debuff anymore. So what's he doing? He's running away and trying to avoid me. So he's just going to run away, and on this arena, it's very hard to get 5 debuffs off in this situation. Now, if he comes to me and Touch of Deaths me, I should be able to actually 5 debuff him before he can get around the corner, but most people won't be doing that. Now, in the situation that your opponent is running away from you, you can try to 5 debuff him, if you want, and it's definitely worth it to try. So what's your sequence there? Well, with that sequence, you're not going to be able to get off Shield Stun because Shield Stun is obviously a melee range skill, and he's not going to be in melee range. So if he's trying to kite around, it depends. If he comes up to you and Touch of Deaths you, you can do something a little bit different where you go Hamstring, Chain, Dark Claw, Hamstring, Hamstring, Fear, right? So you're using 3 hamstrings. Of course, it's going to take a little bit longer. You don't really have much of a choice on that one. Now, optimally, you have Mass Chain. Actually, like, thinking back to what your 5 debuffs are, if you have Mass Chain, your sequence is then Hamstring, Chain, Panther Claw, Mass Chain, let's just say it's here, Hamstring, and Fear. And that's an easy win. That's like over. Like, that's very quick. If you have Mass Chain, this changes things a lot, and especially if a DA is kiting you, again, you can do the same thing. You can Hamstring, Chain, Dark Claw, Mass Chain, Hamstring, Fear, and you're going to have a pretty quick one. Now, if he's kiting you, like I said, if he's trying to Touch of Death you, that's what you want to start with. However, if he's just running away from the start, running directly away, you can start with Fear. The reason you don't want to start with Fear normally is because Fear has a longer cooldown than your break of their talisman, which means you're going to be sitting around, and you can break a talisman and then fear faster, then you can start with fear. Even though with fear you'll break their talisman a little bit quicker, you don't have anything you can actually do to them once you break their talisman. You need that fear up, and it's going to be on quite a long cooldown once you break their talisman. So you only want to start with fear if they're trying to run away. And again, this is how metagames start to happen, because if you're losing the 5 debuff battle against someone and you just start running away, and because you're running away they start the matchup with fear instead of hamstring, you can just turn around. Like, you can't necessarily react in time. Like, I'm not going to assume that you're going to be able to react in time to catch that cooldown. However, you can internally recognize that in this matchup against a certain player, he's always fearing you first when you're trying to run away. Instead of running away your next game, you run right at him and you kill him because he's popping fear first, which means your 5 debuffs will get off much faster than him. So it's definitely something to think about there. So here's going to be avoiding. I have a slight advantage on my talisman. A slight advantage. Now, optimally, what I want to be doing is I want to be staying close to him here, because what happens is I have a slight advantage to begin with. So if I'm right here and he's right here, he either casts his talisman perfect with no gap in it, or I'll be able to catch that gap and get a fear off on him. Now, if I was in a situation where I could see his buffs, I would be doing that because I have that slight advantage. I would be following him and checking on the timing, waiting for his talisman to be up, and then fearing him. However, because I can't see his buffs, and because it was such a small advantage, it was like, a second or less than a second, it's going to be hard to time that advantage and actually use it to my benefit in this situation. However, if you stay close to your opponent, you can force him to guard. And if you stay a little bit close, so for example, if I'm here and he's here and he pops guard, I can actually back up and pop guard here and have a massive advantage. This is something that very few people realize and very few people do. If you keep a little bit of distance on this arena, not right next to him but close, and he pops a talisman, you can back up behind the pillar and pop your own talisman, and he won't be able to get to you before your talisman is casted unless you take a little bit too much time. This is gonna take like a second and a half, so as long as you're only a second and a half behind, he's not going to be able to round this corner and actually get to you in time to actually fear you. So you can definitely find an advantage in that way. And if I was playing this again, I would want to be here or here as he's here, so I can get that advantage. And if he doesn't cast his talisman, then I already have that 1 second advantage on my talisman. I can fear him easily. But if he doesn't cast his talisman, then we just have to play the straight up no talisman situation. However, the majority of people you fight against are going to pop that second talisman just out of habit. Just it's a natural thing that you always do. You always pop your second talisman, and you can bait them into that, again, metagaming them pretty hard. So here, I'm going to try and execute on the very slight advantage I have on him here. We're both going to fail fear, and then immediately afterwards, you need to be doing this like automatically. Honestly, you might even want to do this without even realizing it. You fear, chain, right? So like, the reason I say you might want to be doing this without even thinking about it is because then in this case where fear does fail, both fears failed there, you're winning, right? Because if I chain him instantly, then by the time I even realize it, he's already right next to me, and I shield stun him and we're good to go. But because I'm not paying attention, because I'm not doing this automatically, I take a second to realize, then I chain him, then I stun him, and then I'm going to fear him. So he doesn't actually land fear on me there because he's stunned, because I landed stun before he started casting fear. It's just a weird animation glitch there. But now this fight's over. And one thing to realize is as soon as you get close to someone, you want to be making sure that you're touch of deathing them, because it gives you a 10% debuff land rate buff. And you can try and get the kill there pretty easily. Okay, so let's look for another DA versus DA if there are any. DA versus Necro. DA versus Necro. Alright, so it's only DA versus Necro. Now I'm going to show you a DA versus Necro strategy that you can be trying to use. I should have mentioned this during the DA versus Necro portion, but unfortunately I did not. Now, a thing to realize is that DA versus DA is pretty static. The arenas don't really matter too much to base your play on. Now, if they have Garnets, if you're on Innova and they have Garnets, things change a little bit, but you can still play it fairly similarly. You just need to be a little bit more active in realizing when they're popping their Garnet and all these sorts of things. But again, I think, okay, so I'll show you the strategy here. I think you need to realize quickly that whether or not you can 5 debuff faster than a Necro, because if you can 5 debuff as a DA on a Necro faster than he can 5 debuff you, which honestly I really think you should be able to with Mass Chain, you will not need to use this strategy. This is a strategy on open arena that is very relevant if you can't 5 debuff faster. So here's the strategy. Okay, so what's going to happen? He's going to come close to me. I'm going to step out. You want to make sure that the Necro gets to here. You don't want to step out when he's here because you're giving him more of a chance to actually beat your strategy by having distance. You want him to be as close. You want to basically be kissing when he gets close when you step out here. Now, why do I step out? I step out so this Necro summon won't trap me in the corner. I prefer to step out to give myself a little bit more space, and it also means that he can't, line of sight me. By if I'm in this corner and I fear him, I start this, he can step back a step and line of sight me, which can delay the cast of my debuff, 5 debuffs. But so I step out here, cast fear, and instantly guard again. And because I casted fear quickly, I'm guarding before he even starts or finishes casting his first debuff. In which case, he won't be able to 5 debuff me and fear me before my talisman is out. He will land anchor here. However, if I've got DC on, if I have Fortitude on, even without DC on, if I've got Fortitude up, he's not landing anchor very consistently. It's not something you actually have to be worried about. And if he does, you can always core it or you can liberate it. It's not actually a big deal at all. Okay, so what happens here? He tries to 5 debuff me. It doesn't work. I come out and I just debuff him. Now you're going to notice one thing. He's going to core my fear. This is something you can do because core has about 0.3 second cast time. And it's uninterruptible. So if you start core, right? If you start core, then fear lands. The fear debuff lands on you, and then core finishes, that fear debuff will go off. So just something to realize there. You can do it against Necro Fear as well. But again, 0.3 seconds, because of the way the server updates, oftentimes it takes, 0.2 of a second for fear to actually pop up on your debuff bar. And if it takes too long, you actually get fucked, not even by your own fault, but by the server you get fucked because it didn't update quickly enough to actually cancel that fear because it wasn't technically a debuff on you until afterwards. So it's very random, but it's definitely something you can do. So here he's going to, cleanse my fear. So I'm going to shield stun him and the fight's already over. All right, now here's the second strategy, the second way you do this. Again, these are practice games. This is a strategy where I'm saying play this like it's the open arena. You would be about here on an open arena. So I told him to stand there, and I said, 3, 2, 1, go, and we went. So here he's going to go. Run up to me. I'm Panther Dark Clawing here just because I want that as one of my debuffs that's on him at whatever time. It doesn't matter at whatever time. I'm going to step out and pop Horror, and then I'm going to pop my second Talisman. Here, what's he going to do? He's going to realize he's not going to be able to get the 5 debuffs off there. He doesn't land it, I believe, because probably I have Fortitude up or, whatever. So what's he going to do? He's going to back up and pop his second Talisman. But because I already started debuffing him after I got out of my Talisman, I immediately started debuffing him. I can break his Talisman and fear him before he casts his second Talisman. And this is even more significant if you have Mass Chain, because Mass Chain, instead of having the hamstring, chain, hamstring, and then fear, and wait for that hamstring cooldown, as you can see there's a little bit of a cooldown here, you can just Mass Chain, and this is going to be even faster. That's why I think you can beat a Necros debuff if you have Mass Chain, and also the fact that on NA, I'm not sure if Mass Chain on EU will work the same. I'm not sure if this will work on EU. I don't think it's going to be the same because hamstring actually casts retardedly fast on NA. Like, people don't even notice this. It casts retardedly fast on NA. So on NA, I think this is possible. On EU, I don't think it's possible even with Mass Chain, but you could try it. Anyways, I fear him. I stay back because I realized that he casted guard, and his guard cast actually went off, but I landed my fear just before guard went off. So the fear still landed, but I know I just have to wait out that 10-second guard, which is easy because he's feared away from me, and I win. Now here's what happens if instead of trying to 5 debuff me, they just pop a second talisman. Well, if they just try and pop a second talisman, that's pretty easy to deal with. What's going to happen here? I'm going to step out, fear, talisman. He's going to re-talisman, and I'm just going to run across the arena. It's that simple. If you have a run speed, I don't even have a run speed weapon on right now. I think this is my run speed weapon, and I have a cast speed weapon on, but I'm still able to get away from him before he can 5 debuff me, and the matchup is over, right? Like, that's a very simple way to win open arena, DA versus Necro. If you can't out debuff them, you can definitely win with this strategy with a pretty high win rate, if you do it correctly. All right, so is there anything else we can look at here? Here's DA versus DA. Let's see how this one runs out. So he's chasing him down for Touch of Death, which is definitely something to do. The funny thing is, if he turns around to Touch of Death you can 5 debuff him, right? But if you Touch of Death him, he can't. Like, he can maybe reactively Touch of Death you. He realizes you're starting to cast it, then he casts it, then he runs away. But again, a little bit of metagaming here. You know, Merc can Touch of Death him, but he can't Touch of Death Merc because he'll get 5 debuffs off very quickly and probably break his talisman. So because Merc has the advantage in 5 debuff battles, he has an advantage in the actual game. Right, so now he's chasing him, and this is the strategy I was talking about. He was here, and Juster was here. Juster started casting his talisman, so Merc backed up, and now he casts his own talisman from a little bit further back. And that's going to give him a huge advantage here on Juster. Now he's got like a 3-second advantage. All he needs to do is avoid for a couple seconds, make sure it's not a 5 debuff battle. And even if you win the 5 debuff battle, you don't want to get into it in that situation because you have a 3-second advantage on talisman. You have a basically guaranteed win. There's no way to gamble it on a situation where he could maybe win if you mess up, right? You just avoid for a second, then you come back around, you try and fear him. Juster avoids perfectly around this pillar for those 3 seconds though, so it ends up being a 50-50 fear battle, but it's still going to end up with Merc winning anyways. So here, actually, Merc has, arena control, which is somewhat relevant in that it's easier for him to take out that Panther. It's easier for him to fear it in the opposite direction and then hamstring it, whereas Juster here is trying to stun it or fear it into a wall that's much closer, which means he has much less time. And if that Panther doesn't get feared, if Merc fails a fear, he has plenty of room to kite around here, whereas Juster has no room to kite around. So it's definitely an advantage to have arena control in this situation. Not the biggest advantage ever, but it's definitely something, and it helps a little bit. So what's going to happen here? This is what I'm talking about by fearing insta-chaining. He's going to fail chain, he's going to fail fear, and here's one thing to realize. Chain is actually faster than fear, so I think Juster fucks up here by Merc even getting fear off, because if you chain someone, their fear should get canceled by your chain, because at least again on Innova, it's faster to chain than it is to fear for whatever reason. Now I think on NA this might not be true, but on Innova of course it is true, which means chain has a lower land rate though. It's more like 60, 65, 70%, whereas fear is about 90%, which means if you chain, you're going to win automatically some of your games, and you're going to lose automatically some of your games. Now what does Merc do here? He fears and then he instantly chains, and he actually cancels Juster's fear with his chain. This is fucking beautiful. This is a beaut. It's a beaut right here. Okay, fear fails, like Juster fucks up there, gets chained, and he instantly chains back, and you can see the fear animation went off, but it doesn't say resisted. And it doesn't say resisted because even though the animation went off, he actually got fear canceled. It never actually fully casted. And then he stuns him, and then he's going to fear him, and then it's over. And you'll notice the little stutter step there. Stun, move behind a corner, so when that core ring comes off, he has to move around to actually get the fear off, come back out, and hit the fear. Like, that is picture perfect gameplay there on DA. So here's DA versus DA again. So what's he doing here? Let's see. This is a mistake. You can't really cast your talisman from this far out, because now Juster can wait a few seconds, and Juster can start casting his talisman now, and by the time Ring gets to him, Juster now has a 3-second advantage on talismans. So you have to be very careful about that. Casting it that far out. You need to be much closer when you're starting to cast your talisman, or you can get punished for it. Now, what I think he might actually be trying to do is actually bait him here. I think he might be staying in the center of the arena to bait. Wait, what the fuck? Is this the same game that I was watching? Oh, I was looking at the second talisman cast. All right. So he's chasing him here. He's not able to land anything. Then he's going to back up, and this is the second talisman cast, which actually makes this a little bit worse. But the one thing to realize is he can act. I think he might actually be trying to bait here, because Juster might realize he's got a 3-second-ish advantage on talismans, and in that case, he wants to make sure that Merc can't run away. Because in the situation where Merc's talisman is starting to go down, he can just run behind either of these pillars here, here or here, right? And wait out those 3 seconds. It's not a problem at all. So what Juster might try and do in this situation is push out when the talismans are kind of close to going down, 5 seconds left, and try and, be next to him so he can't run away at the end of the talisman and get away. However, if he does push out, Merc would try and 5 debuff him, and he might be thinking that he can bait Juster to push out early, and when he pushes out early, he can 5 debuff him and win the fight. So again, popping it in the middle of the arena here, inadvisable, but again, this might be some metagaming here, trying to take him down, like trying to bait him into doing a mistake and then play from there. And because he doesn't push up, Merc can just move back behind a pillar, wait out those 3 seconds, and now you're in a 50-50 fear battle. And I fucking hate 50-50 fear battles. It's like, I hate this part of the matchup. I hate this that this even exists, and I hate that people fucking play like this. I just want to run up to people and 5 debuff them, because that actually shows skill. Like, running away and then 50-50 fearing is disgusting. But whatever. He pushes up here. One thing to realize is that the person strafing in to fear the guy sitting still actually does have an advantage. So just something to realize if you do it perfectly. The thing is, it's really about like ability to fuck it up, right? A really shitty player sitting still and fearing, you're not fucking that up. It's unfuck-upable, okay? No matter what, you're going to have the maximum gameplay. You're going to have the maximum speed on your fear if you're sitting still waiting for someone to peek on you and then you fear them. However, and if a bad player tries to strafe out on someone standing still and fear them, they're probably going to swing too wide. They're probably not going to cast it fast enough, and you're probably actually going to cast your fear faster. However, if you are a good player standing still against a good or very good player coming around the corner casting it, that player coming around the corner will have the slight advantage. Now, a slight advantage doesn't usually mean that much in DA versus DA because of, again, the lag on fear actually proccing on your opponent when you send it onto them, means usually you're just going to fear him and he fears you. However, occasionally with an insta proc of fear, if you hit it at the right moment, I guess just before the server updates, it will instantly proc fear, and in that scenario you can cancel your fear. So having a slight advantage will occasionally be important, even though usually it doesn't fucking matter. Now if we look at one more video, we can look at Mushara. Where is it? Is it here? Okay, we'll just Google it. So this is a full DA video, right? So show him versus DA again. I'll have to show you versus Summoner, but there's not a lot of videos against Summoners in this video. So I'm looking for a specific fight in this video that I can show you. Okay, so here's the open. Again, it looks like Mushara wins the 5 debuff battle, so he's going to try and 5 debuff him here. It's not going to end up working out, I think. There's the recast on the talismans. He's going to keep chasing him, trying to 5 debuff. Now, one thing to realize is that when you try and 5 debuff someone, their Panther is going to do more damage to you than you do to them the majority of the time. So you do have to be aware of that. Sometimes trying to 5 debuff someone like this, if you know the person you're playing against isn't going to get 5 debuffed if he's good enough to avoid you, it's not worth it to try and 5 debuff them at all, because when you get into that 50-50 scenario afterwards, you're going to be at a disadvantage because you're going to have taken more damage from their pet than you've done to them, which means, you know, when you're in these fear battles, you're getting feared and taking damage from the pet from time to time, you're going to get kind of fucked. Now here, again, he starts with fear, and he got 3 quick debuffs off there because he started with fear. There's the 4th, and now Alhim, because of Panther Darkclaw, that's actually 5, right? He got 4 of his own and Panther Darkclaw. So now Alhim has to cast his second talisman really early because he's been 5 debuffed. He has to cast it much earlier than Mushara does, which means now he's got a huge advantage. He's got a several second advantage on the talismans, and he can just wait and then fear him. Now the problem is, this is what Merc tried not to do. If you remember, when that second talisman went off, Alhim realized he was at a disadvantage in talismans, and he's going to try and 5 debuff, right? He's going to go for the 5 debuff battle here because he realizes he's at a disadvantage, and Mushara obliges. You do not want to do that. You want to be backing up, and he realizes after a second that he needs to back up, but I think he might even be 5 debuffed at this point, and he just gets lucky that he actually wins, or maybe it worked out and he didn't get 5 debuff. I'm not really counting here. So now against another DA, let's see what happens here. Say Marina again, you're going to go for the 5 debuff, not starting with fear. And again, you only start with fear against someone that you know you beat in the 5 debuff battle, thereby you know they're going to run away. If it's not known that they're going to run away, you don't start with fear, and he's actually going to get 5 debuffs off here and win. Like, you can definitely do this if someone's bad at juking. He's just going to 5 debuff him here, and he even gets off shield stun because Krios is shit. And there's the fear, and there's the easy-ish win. Here he's going to play against Alhim again. Very similar gameplay, and it's not really very interesting, honestly. There's nothing that great about this. He's just going to try and 5 debuff, and then they're going to fear each other. It's like not actually that interesting other than the metagame aspects, you know? So let's see if we can find some stuff versus Summoners, because Summoner is a somewhat... it feels like a hard matchup. Like, it feels like a matchup that's not going to be easy. It's not a hard matchup. It's actually a very easy matchup. Like, you should be winning these pretty easily, and I can try and explain them mostly through theory crafting exactly how you want to be playing against them. But I can also show you a couple from my videos that should illustrate the ideas that you want to be using against all summoners fairly well. Yeah, so they're not going to show any, so I'll show you from my video. Okay, so first I'll show you... I can show you another video actually from this. Alright, so what's happening here? I know Jinto's not going to try and 5 debuff me, so I start with Fear, I get 2 off. And then we both cast second talisman about the same time. I think he had a slight advantage on his first talisman. Yeah, he had a slight advantage on his first talisman, so he can cast his second talisman a little bit later. You'll note here I have this buff here, this augment buff. That's deflect arrow. This is for cancels. Your lower level buffs are more likely to get canceled, so things that will most likely get canceled in this case are actually the augment, deflect arrow, Windwalk, Zerk, Shield. But even less than Windwalk, even more than Windwalk, Shield, Augment, Deflect Arrow. Those are the most common ones to get blocked, and Deflect Magic as well. Those are the most common ones to get canceled, and that's why you put on as many buffs as you can in DA versus DA so they don't get canceled. So I'm trying to break his talisman here. It doesn't work because he gets behind the other pillar, which is what you're supposed to do. And then we're going to double cast talismans here. I think this is the one where we just 50-50 fear each other over and over and over. I know he's got a slight advantage. That's why I'm avoiding here. And that's why I'm making sure that when talismans go out, I'm behind the pillar and he's on the other side. So he can't just instantly kill me, you know? I'm making sure that I'm not getting fucked instantly by that. Okay, so I waited out for a second, then I come around, then I get the fear, and we're just gonna fear each other a bunch of times. What I'm doing, I'm coming out. Like the only notable thing here is there's the fear. Okay, I'm gonna come out and stun his panther and try and heal myself. I think, um, just to give yourself a little bit of extra ability. Now the thing is, you want to be fearing him into a wall. Like the closer your opponent is to a wall in these 50-50 fear battles, the better you are, because that means they're gonna get stuck on that wall, and the panther's gonna hit them for longer and do more damage and make them more likely to die. In these situations, because you can only do 1 or 2 heals before your opponent gets to you and tries to forces the fear battle. So best case scenario, I'm here, my fear ends here, and I run up and I get to here, and he's right here, and I fear him into the wall, and he's getting hit by a panther the whole time. Because when you're getting feared, when you're running, the panther's not actually hitting you. So just a little bit of like, this is very intricate, like small advantage strategies, but in these sorts of scenarios, stay away from walls, if you can. I'm gonna run up to him here. He's gonna try and chain me, but I feared him, and I feared him even faster. Like because of the way I came around this corner, and I had the timing right, so he tried to chain me, but that chain doesn't even get resisted because I fear before the chain even goes off. So he doesn't even ever have a chance to actually win there. And now he's feared. He resists my fear, and this is the stack you do when someone resists your fear. You resist fear, chain, shield stun, stop. I'm gonna try and click on stop because there's a 20%. I'll show you. There's a 20% chance that 30% chance that any physical damage, will cancel stun. Chance for stun to be removed by damage. Right? So if we look at this, the first hit, even just the first hit by damage, okay, is 30%. It's 30%. You see this shit? This is 30%. This is magic damage. This is physical damage. 30 fucking percent. So you need to stop your panther from attacking immediately because your panther will like cancel his stun as well. But he fears me as well. Like he fears me as I fear him here. Like what happens? I stun him, but I wasn't quite quick enough, right? And so he lands fear anyways. So I get feared in the opposite direction. Again, because he was stunned against the wall there, he took a shit ton of damage, which means I have an advantage, and I'm going to be able to push up. And again, I'm fearing him. He's much closer to the wall there, so he's going to be taking more damage than I'm taking. I'm going to come out. I'm going to stun the pet. And in fact, it like kind of fails. I'm going to heal once to give myself a little bit of breathing room. Fear again. He's going to fear into the same wall. And because he's lower HP, because of what was happening earlier, he will actually end up dying here just to the Panthers. While I barely survive, so there is a lot of luck fucking bound in this, but he's closer to the wall, so he's taking more damage and I survive. Okay, so here's versus Cronus, and this is versus Summoners. Now, one thing to realize here is that the Phantom Summoner Talisman is actually a stun, so you want to be using Majestic or Blue Wolf with the Fortitude toggle on against this because, again, it is a stun, not a paralysis. Even though it says paralyzed or whatever, it is a stun. And the reason I'm using Guard and not UD here, against an Elemental Summoner, I would 100% be using UD. However, a Phantom Summoner doesn't actually have any kill pressure on you unless they land their Talisman. So even though I have Majestic Robes and I have a UD Talisman, which is a valid way to play against a Phantom Summoner, I think it's certainly a valid way to play against it. Because it has no kill pressure, I'm using UD here, just to be sure. Now I'm going to take a bit more damage. The summon will give me more damage when I'm recasting Guard here if I do it. Which I actually don't. Yeah, I do. Okay. It's going to give me some damage while I'm recasting Guard. But because I don't feel like he has any kill pressure, I'm just ensuring that he doesn't land a stun on me, which is the way that he probably wins, unless I fuck up in some other way. So it's safer to UD with Majestic and Fortitude on in terms of like you can fuck up and it won't cause as much of a problem. However, it also does open you up to the small percentage chance that he lands his cubic, and then he resummons it, and he spams it, and he keeps getting on you, and you just get chained and die. So I'm just using guard here. It's just preference. Just preference. So what am I doing here? I'm making sure he can't bane me. This is something that is actually no longer relevant on either server because banes don't work the same way. Banes used to take off your Windwalk, your Acumen, and your Haste through your Talisman. It would take off all three of these debuffs. It was essentially a cancel specific for these three debuffs, which meant in order to play against summoners, in my opinion, correctly, you wanted to be avoiding, because as if you did not have Windwalk, Haste, or Acumen, not only would it take you incredibly long to actually kill him when you're attacking him, it also meant you wouldn't be able to resummon your Panther in this situation. You wouldn't be able to resummon your Panther if he kills it. And if you don't have a Panther, it takes a ridiculously long time to actually kill someone unless you have a really good weapon. And even although you can do it if you have haste, without haste it's a joke how long it takes you to actually fucking kill someone. It is a fucking joke. With haste it's not actually that bad. Without, it's a joke. Okay, so my opinion on that was to never let him bane you, because that means, I mentioned earlier, on Innova servers, on 4-game servers, if you have Acumen and you have a cast speed set on, you can fear, resummon, fear. So you could run up to him, vengeance, stun his pet, fear, resummon, fear, and you'd take a couple hits from the pet when the stun went down, but it wouldn't be very relevant because it was very unlikely to cancel your casting given that you had vengeance up, and you know it was only going to hit you a couple times. So I'm trying to avoid banes here. However, as I mentioned, you don't need to do that anymore, and you can play this very differently. And the other thing to realize is I'm actually level 78. This is a level 78 character, which means I don't have party UD. Now, instead of using a UD talisman against a Phantom Summoner here, in theory, I can party UD and I can Castle Crown, and that's all I need to do. You know, I guard once and with party UD up, and that's going to be, 15 seconds of UD where he can't kill me. Guard, then re-guard, that's 20 seconds where he can't stun me. Again, he's got no kill pressure. Then, when the second guard goes down, I can pop a crown, and I can be running up on him and just killing him. So he's going to have no real ability to kill me, and I can honestly just be chasing him down. If I've got party UD up, his nukes aren't going to do significant damage to me, so I can be chasing him down. And if he tries to stop and sit there and nuke me, I can 5 debuff him very quickly, and he's not going to have a 10-second talisman. Again, it takes about 3 seconds for a DA with chain, and especially on NA it should take even less than 3 seconds to break a talisman. So if he tries to sit there and nuke you down because you're trying to chase him around, right? If he tries to sit there and nuke you down, you just break his talisman and you fear him. It's that simple. You just break his talisman and he's not going to have that 10-second talisman, which means he's going to need to be running around this pillar, running around the pillar over and over, and you're going to be running around, and by running around the pillar so often, the pet's not going to be hitting you because pets will not be auto-attacking a moving target. They wait for the target to stand still to actually get their auto-attacks off, so only skills land. So things like the Phantom Summoner and Warlock pets, which only have one damage skill, which is a melee damage skill, they have a very tough time doing damage to you if you're continually moving around. So all this to say that instead of playing like this, where I'm trying to make sure he doesn't bane me, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to draw out his guard talisman by pressuring close, but not getting too close, because when he starts casting it, I want to back up and get behind the pillar here and make sure he can't bane me. All this to say, you don't need to do that. You can go right next to him, pop guard, pop party UD, re-pop guard, and because you pop party UD after guard, you're going to still have 5 seconds on guard when 7 seconds on guard when you start casting your second UD talisman, which means he's never going to have a chance to just sit there and nuke you when you're outside of UD, and you're going to have 4 or 5 seconds left on your second guard, and thereby his second guard, by the time your UD is down, in which case, if you really need to, you can vengeance, but vengeance does actually prevent you from getting some distance closer to him, because obviously it slows you. So you can also, instead of guard party UD, you can UD talisman then party UD, and that's going to give you 25 seconds where you have UD up. Again, you are sacrificing a little bit there, because if he lands his cubic, he can just sit there and stun you while his summon is auto attacking you. And even though you have UD up, a summon, especially the Phantom Summoner summon or the Warlock summon, if he anchors you, that summon will fuck you up. It does a lot of damage even through UD. So I prefer to play it a little bit safer. I'll pop the Guard Talisman, then party UD if I had it, then pop a second Guard Talisman. Just evade him a little bit for the last 5 seconds. Make sure he can't just nuke you while auto-attacking you with the summon. And then you come around, you kill him, and because there's no Banes, you're totally fine. And if you have the Talisman, the full heal Talisman that you get on NA, you're just gonna fuck him. He's just really got no chance. He really should have no chance without Banes. Like, Banes really changed this matchup, and I think this matchup takes a lot less skill without Banes being involved. So here I'm gonna pop my second guard, and both of his guards are down. So I just run up and fear him, get a vengeance, and I'm fearing him and stunning the pet, and he's just fucked basically. Now, one thing you can actually do is as soon as your Panther hits him the first time, you can UD. Because if you UD after your Panther hits him once, you're guaranteed that your Panther is within range to be auto-attacking him while UD'd, so you don't have to worry about clicking it off. Obviously, you could click it off, but you don't have to worry about it, which just makes it a little bit easier. And you just sit there auto-attacking him while in UD, but Vengeance, as I mentioned earlier, is the stronger of the UDs, so it's what you want to be doing. And the other thing to realize is you want to have Fortitude up while you're killing this guy, because if he's got you targeted, he can land his stun while he's feared. It will still go off occasionally. So you have Fortitude up and you have Blue Wolf on to ensure that you don't get paralyzed by his cubic, and you can get really unlucky, and I have lost fights by getting paralyzed from a cubic while he's feared and just dying. So it's definitely possible. All right, now we'll go DA versus DA again. This is not very interesting because he's going to try and get a talisman advantage on me, and I'm just going to fear him. But I'll show you a strategy here from DA versus DA that is relevant. What happens here? I fear him, and instead of running up to him here, I'm going to stay back, okay? And this is something some people like to do, okay? And I fail fear. You can't really see it, but I do fail fear here. It's does it say resisted? It should, oh, fuck me. It should say resisted here in a second. And because I'm staying back, I'm line of sighting him as soon as that fear fails. And this is something that works incredibly well on the pillar arena, because the pillar will be here, he'll be feared into the corner here, and you sit here, and you come out, fear, and then you go right back in. And if your fear fails, you're making sure that you don't get feared in return. You have a chance to take the next 50-50 instead of just losing fear and potentially automatically losing, because he's in Blue Wolf light here, which means he has some stun resist, and if he has Fortitude up, he has a lot of stun resist, and it means my shield stun probably won't land, in which case if I'm next to him and my fear fails, I just die. Now, which one do I think is the more effective strategy? I think it's better to stay next to him and kill him, because you're going to take about 2 less fears to kill him in that scenario, and you just gamble on that. Occasionally, you're going to get punished for it, but I don't think it's going to happen that much, especially because the people you play against are unlikely to have Fortitude up, because that's something that only really good and really aware players will be putting up. Most people don't. Even people that are expecting to get beat to 5 debuffs, they won't even have Fortitude up, or they might not even have Blue Wolf on. So I'd say take the risk. It's more than worth it. You save yourself. Instead of having to fear him 6 times, you fear him 3 or 4 times, and that is worth the trade-off of the potential to lose if you fail one of those fears. Because if you do fail a fear in this situation, by line of sighting him here, all I'm doing is creating a 50-50. All I'm doing is creating a second chance, but it's a 50-50 chance. It's not that great. The reason I played back here is because I thought that when I casted fear on him, he might have actually casted the talisman. I mentioned before that it's possible to finish casting a talisman, but it'll show the end of the animation. His body, you see how he's crouched a little bit? He'll crouch, shrug up when the talisman finishes. I wasn't sure if I had seen the shrug up or not, so I wasn't sure if he had a talisman up, and that's why I'm playing a little bit back here. If this wasn't a situation where I thought his talisman might have casted, I would not be playing like this. I would be pushing up on him, trying to kill him, and I would be immediately touch of deathing him to get that extra 10% debuff resist. Again, 90% fear plus 10% debuff resist, it's almost never failing. So again, I stay back, I fail fear, I hide behind the pillar for a second, make sure he can't fear me, and I'm going to step out and fear him. And again, because I'm stepping out on him, I get the kill. Now, this is something that you're actually going to notice. I'm going to show you a very interesting strategy that you can. Nobody's going to use this, but it's definitely something you can use. So you'll notice it here. This isn't unintentional, but you will notice it here. What happens here? He's just outside of the line of sight here, right? Just outside. He's trying to spam fear. And I'm just inside, so he's trying to spam fear. And then he's going to go, okay, I can't get him here. And he's going to strafe out wide to try and get to a different angle to spam fear on me. And when he's strafing out wide, if you spam fear as you're strafing, it's going to stop your character. You're going to stop moving. You're just going to sit there trying to fear someone through the corner of a wall. It's not actually going to move you to land fear. It's going to sit you still and make you sit there as you spam fear. So when he's strafing wide, he has to not be hitting fear. He has to not be using a skill, which means if he stops like this, starts trying to fear me, then realizes that he can't and starts to strafe wide, if I strafe out quickly and fear him instantly, I'm always going to get my fear off first. I'm always going to have an advantage. And that's actually what happens here. You can see exactly how that happens. He stops, right? Look at that. He stops. That's him casting fear. Now he's going to try and get a different angle to actually land it on me. And I'm going to step out and fear him. And I get the fear off and he doesn't land his fear at all. And that's the game. So now I'm going to show you against an elemental summoner. Now this is not actually, again, as relevant, partially because Banes no longer work the same way, and partially because a lot of you guys might be playing on NA servers, in which case the summon does a shit ton more damage. So instead of playing like this, you want to play close to the player. Don't play like this, play close. Now, the important thing to realize here, this is still a relevant way to play it. You still UD Talisman. Put up Fortitude, put on a Blue Wolf set, you're going to have a 70% stun resist. The thing is, he can land stun occasionally. However, he's only going to get off like one over the duration of his 2 guard talismans, okay? And with 70% stun resist, it's not, likely to actually do... It's not going to kill you if he stuns you once most of the time, but it's going to get to the point where it fails so often that they're not even going to think it's worth it to be stunning you, because they're losing a lot of DPS when they're stunning you. They're losing a ton of DPS in that situation. And because of that, they're not even going to try and stun you. They're just going to try and spam nuke you. And by spam nuking you, they guarantee that you win the matchup. They guarantee it. So if you're in Blue Wolf and not Majestic, that's fucking fine. Put on Blue Wolf Heavy, pop the Fortitude toggle, still use the UD Talisman. Now, what I would recommend is you double Talisman to start off. Instead of just UDing, you go guard, then UD, or you can do UD, then guard. In fact, UD, then guard might be a little bit better, assuming you're level 79, of course, because party UD is 15 seconds, which means you only need to bridge the gap of 5 seconds to pop this, for this UD Talisman to last. Then you pop party UD, as long as it lasts 5 seconds, and then you've got, a full 20 seconds of UD'd movement where you're not slowed by having vengeance, and you can survive without really worrying because you have a shit ton of PDEF and MDEF. So I would recommend, potentially, depending on what the gear you have, but I would recommend definitely double talismaning at the start. Why am I not double talismaning here? It's because of Banes. Because if I double talisman, he can push out and Bane me because I'm standing still for so long at the start, and then he can run back. And I don't want to get Bane, so I'm only single talismaning. It's a metagame situation. Because there's no Banes, you can safely double talisman. Now, what do I recommend when you're double talismaning? If you have a 2 talisman slot, make sure you cast... Okay, so say that you have guard and UD, right? You're going to go UD first, right? You're going to cast UD, then guard. UD, switch talisman, switch, okay? Then guard. Okay, UD, switch to guard, to guard. Yeah, to guard, right? Because the cooldown on your second guard is 8 seconds. On any talisman you equip there, it's going to be 8 seconds, okay? And that means that if you cast UD, then guard, then switch, your guard talisman's going to be off before the cooldown resets. Not that it's going to be off, but because it's 8 seconds and you want to be casting your second talisman at 3 seconds, obviously there's a gap here. You don't want that. So you have to cast 1, switch, cast 2. And that's why I have these bound. That's why this is Alt Q, this is Alt E, Alt A, Alt D, Alt F. That's why I have those bound. I have those bound for the equip and unequip if I need to in certain situations. Now, I don't use it in this matchup. I actually use it against summoners on Necro. I was double talismaning, where this was a more relevant situation because, again, I can't double talisman as DA because I'm worried about Banes, but you don't need to be worried about Banes. Now, again, similar to the Phantom Summoner, if an Elemental Summoner realizes that he can't DPS you down with his summon through the guards, right? Which he'll realize, after a little bit, assuming you have decent jewels, he's not going to be able to DPS you down. He's going to try to nuke you down, in which case you 5 debuff him as he's nuking you, and you can just get the fear off. Now there's going to become some metagames. He might pop a second talisman, but all of this works together to put you in a very good situation. And if you're on NA and you have a full heal talisman, it's going to be real fucking hard for him to actually get anything done. Because if things start to go south, you can full heal talisman, 3-second cast time. You've got party UD up. You can probably cast it even while he's nuking you. But worst case scenario, you get low and you fear him. You fear him, stun the summon, full heal, and you're good to fucking go. You're good to go. Now, the other thing to realize here is that what UDs transfer the pet? Normal UD, both UD talismans, and party UD transfer to the pet. So if you're starting with the UD talisman and then you're party UDing, he can't actually take down your summon. He can't really actually take it down reasonably, which means you're also going to have your summon alive when you get him feared. So he's going to be in a shit situation. It's going to be very hard for him to actually do anything. It's very likely that you win this matchup. In fact, I'm pretty sure a good DA will beat all summoners. Maybe not Warlock, that's a little bit more questionable, but it should definitely beat summoners with consistency very easily if you play it correctly. And it's not even that fucking hard to play correctly because you don't have to avoid Banes. This is a lot more complicated. When you're trying to avoid Banes, it's a lot more complicated, and I'll show you how I play it in one of these other matches. But here you're going to see I benefaction, he guards. One thing to realize is if they're going to guard late, like a lot of summoners will try and guard late to try to create some space where they have an extra few seconds of guard. However, if they do that, you can debuff their pet and, waste. That's a 5-second stun I just put on his pet because he tried to get 1 second extra on guard. That you can do that. And again, I'm trying to avoid the Banes here. He's going to try and get another advantage on guard, but this time, because he waits so long, he gets fucked basically, and I get close to him, fail fear, but I end up coring his stun because I forgot Fortitude. Again, I forgot Fortitude here. That's why his stun lands, and I have to core it. If I had Fortitude up, his stun would be unlikely to land. Now, instead of pushing him here, if he had started to cast a guard talisman, rather than pushing, I could just turn and fear his summon, and then again, pop party UD if I had it, and wait out the next 10 seconds. And it's like perfectly fine. Again, against summoners, you can actually try and avoid the summoner for the first little bit. If they are trying to nuke you down, if they have a plus 16 weapon, you can just party UD, you can benefaction, then party UD, then avoid him. You don't need to try and face tank him and 5 debuff him, except for maybe on the open arena. But it's definitely, you can do one or the other. I think the 5 debuff works more consistently against players. It takes away a little bit of the risk because someone can still, crit you with their pet nuke a couple of times and hit you with their Aqua Talisman and actually kill you through your UDs, because Aqua Talisman will do full damage through UDs, and that's one of the things that summoners want to be doing against DAs. If a DA has UD up, they want to be spam resummoning their cubic, getting that thing to proc on you non-stop and do maximum damage. However, because especially on NA, because your heal is so quick on NA, you can heal yourself out of this situation pretty well, and even if a summoner creates space, you can fear their pet and continually heal yourself, and you'll be perfectly fine. So all this to say, DA should easily be beating Necro now that they don't have Banes. They don't really have any kill pressure on you. What they're going to be trying to do on EU servers or 4-game servers, EU and RU, they're going to be trying to kill your pet. But because you have party UD, killing your pet isn't that big of a deal. It's going to take a lot to kill your pet, and they're basically spending their whole match trying to kill your pet, and eventually they will most likely kill it. Even through UD, they're very likely to actually be able to kill your pet. However, on 4-game servers, you can simply resummon your pet and you're fine. You just, again, fear, resummon, fear, done. That'll resummon your pet, no problem, right? And on NA, you can full heal yourself. So even though the pet's going to be putting some damage pressure onto you consistently, they're not going to be able to cast nukes because you can't cast nukes when you're feared, which means basically, even though it takes you a while to kill them, the kill pressure that the summon has on you is almost entirely mitigated by the fact that you can full heal yourself. And you can also do the same thing. You can also resummon fear. He's going to get out of that fear, though. He's going to get out of it for a second. He's going to be able to try to do something against you. However, I would have to test this to know which is the better option. Is it better to just fear him and auto attack him down, which I think intuitively makes a little bit more sense, but potentially unintuitively, it could be more worth it to resummon your pet, depending on your DPS, depending on how many epics you have, how many epics they have, your situation. Could be different. So I'm going to show you what happens here. This is like a good situation, okay? This is when this is like a very metagame situation here, because Iventa knows how I like to play. Iventa's a very good player. He knows how I like to play. He knows that I'm avoiding Banes, and most people don't do this. Most DAs just try and YOLO rush you. He knows I'm trying to avoid Banes here, so he waits to use his guard, which means I fear his summon, and he's going to pop guard. Now here, I should fear his summon again. I shouldn't be just rushing here. The guard's going to get off before I get to him. I should fear his summon again and then back up. And that means by the time the next summon gets to me, his guard's probably out and I can perma CC that pet. But instead, I don't wait, which means I'm falling back. It doesn't give me as much of an advantage, but it's still not that bad. I create some distance, then pop my second UD to keep UD permanently up because I don't have party UD, which would make this a lot easier. He's going to run back. He's going to pop his second guard, and I'm going to run back again. Again, this is something you don't actually have to be doing. Since they don't have Banes, I'm going to come into my base. I could be resummoning my pet here. That's probably what I want to be doing. But he's getting arena control, and this is just putting pressure on me in this situation to be back in my base and as far away as possible, so he can't be doing anything to me while his guard is up. And as soon as his guard is down and I start to push out, like optimally, his guard goes down, he doesn't back up. This is like arena control tip number 5,000. If I'm here and he's there, he doesn't back up when his guard is off. He only backs up when I start to push out. That's the tip. It's very basic, but it will mind game a lot of people. They're going to think, oh shit, does he have his guard? If his guard goes down and he's instantly pushing back, I'm instantly pushing out. This can create a couple, an extra second or two for you to get work done with. Now here, I'm going to chain the pet and stun it just to make sure I prevent the nuke from going off, but also because I want to keep fear up in case, like, if I feared that pet, in theory, Iventa could try and bane me and then back up. Obviously, I'd be able to chain him if he baned me, but there's a chance, obviously, because chain is kind of low land rate. It lands really well against pets, but it lands very poor. Like, stuns land well against pets, however, fears do not. Chains and stuns land pretty well. So I'm thinking, I don't want to fear the pet. I would rather chain and stun it. Now, something that most people don't know, if this pet goes out of range, this is going to be like 1,300 range away when I get the fear off on Iventa, the pet will not go back to attacking you. So I chain and stun it over here. He's not going to resummon it, and because the pet is so far away when it gets out of stun, it doesn't actually come back to attacking me. So that's something like, if you chain a pet and then stun it and then run straight away from it, it seems like it won't run back at you to attack you. I think this is the mechanics of the pet. I don't think this is a glitch or anything. Well, I mean, depending on how you talk about the mechanics of the pet. I don't think this is like a weird one-off situation. I think this is exactly how pets work. If they get out of range, they're not going to move back and attack you right, when they come out. So I'm just fearing him here. I'm not even going to resummon my pet. And his fucking talisman is doing a shit ton of damage to me. It's like, it does like 160 damage a tick or something ridiculous. But because this pet isn't hitting me, I'm not pressured, which means I don't have to be healing myself. I don't have to be stunning it. I can get the damage off on him very easily and get the kill. And here's another fight. The fourth fight against Iventa in this video. Iventa's just the most relevant person I'm playing against here. He's known as like the two best farmers on Skelth, potentially not after this video. Well, I mean, the thing is, you never know how good like someone potentially is if he's just playing Summoner, because I think in this matchup, DA is supposed to beat Summoner. So if Iventa was a DA player instead of a Summoner player, who knows? He could be better than me. This doesn't mean I'm better than him, but it does mean I beat him in this matchup and I can farm more points, you know, in theory, if I can 4-0 him, which I think I did this, I think 4-0 or 4-1. It means I can farm more points. It means he's supposed to evade me. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm a better player. And Iventa's like Iventa's even going to see this, but I just want to say Iventa's actually really fucking good. So it's hard to say if I'm better or worse. I'm sure he thinks he's better. And I'm sure I think I'm better, but whatever. We're going to have another matchup. Again, I'm trying to avoid Banes, but he waits too long here. You notice how long he waits. He waits too long to cast his guard. He gets a little bit too slow on it, and I just run up and fear him. And he realizes here, like, instead of even putting his pet on me, he just tries to kill my pet. Like, he realizes he's not going to be able to kill me. Like, a lot of the time, summoners will be kind of cocky, because most of the time against bad DAs, putting your summon on the DA is effective, because you're just going to kill him. If he's going to fuck up, he's not going to be able to reach you. You're going to juke him better. He's not going to use his time very well. He's not going to use his talismans very well. Your best bet is just to put the summon on him. You'll kill him the majority of the time. Once you start playing very good DAs, then you have to start killing their pet, because they're going to be the guys that will fear you no matter what. And because you're getting feared no matter what, your real goal is to actually like stay alive through that fear and have your summon continually DPSing him and hopefully kill him, hopefully get out of fear and like get things done. Now, I'll give you an example. Actually, I'll give you an example from my own video, I think. But basically, you kill the pet so he can't kill you quickly, and when you get feared, you're likely to get out of it, and you're still putting pressure on him, and he's putting less pressure on you. So here, I'm actually going to end up letting my pet die because I wait. Like I told you, once the pet attacks once, then you can UD. So I wait, because the UD setup is a lot of the time just to get UD onto the pet, because his summon is on my pet. So I want a UD to put it onto my pet, right? Which means I need the pet in a position to be attacking him before I UD. Otherwise, it's pointless, because then I just have 30 seconds where I have no pet anyways, right? So like, what is even the fucking point? So I try and get it onto him before I UD, but I'm waiting here to fear him before I UD. And because I'm waiting, because I'm like trying to do extra things and not just attack, like not just focusing on UDing, he ends up killing the summon. But it doesn't really matter that much, because I have really fucking good gear here. Like, my gear is very good, and more importantly, I'm not low HP. If I'm low HP, the pressure that the summon being on me causes is much more significant. However, because I'm not low HP, because I feared him so early in the fight, and because I have, again, because I'm not Baned, which again you don't have to worry about anymore, I can kill him pretty easily. It's when you're Baned, when you don't have haste, Aku, or Windwalk, that it's hard to actually kill a guy without a pet. So that's going to be the win there. And I'll show you another way, another couple of fights, another few fights here. So I'll show you this video just to show you an example of some DA gameplay, and I'll show you this video, and there's one more. It's called 3-0. Yeah, it's called 3-0. Okay, so let's watch this one first. This is more like how you can play now, especially if you're level 80. Insane Crusher is a fucking broken skill, and I'll tell you something about summoners. Okay, I'll tell you something about Necros and summoners that's important to know, okay? When you do an AoE skill like Insane Crusher, if it hits the pet first, which it has a tendency to do, okay, something about Transfer Pain. If Transfer Pain cannot transfer the entirety of the damage, it will not transfer any. Let me repeat that. If Transfer Pain cannot transfer every single point of damage you take to your pet, like 50-50, if it cannot transfer all of that, it won't transfer any. So, if you take 10,000 damage, so 5,000 split, if your pet has 4,999 health, it's not transferring any. You're taking 10k damage. So if you Insane Crusher and he doesn't UD his pet, Okay, Necros, what they'll do is a Necro will leave their pet stopped over here and they'll be over here. And that way the pet will not have a problem with that. It won't get fucked. Okay, basically. You won't get fucked because Necros can't UD their pet. Okay, so Necros will often stop their summon over to the side within Transfer Pain range, but outside of Insane Crusher range to make sure this doesn't happen. However, summoners will have to have their pet on you, and unless they UD their pet, if you hit it first, again, which your skill has a tendency to hit the summon first, there is a very high likelihood that you're going to do so much damage to their pet that the summoner will not transfer any pain, any damage, and you're going to almost fucking one-shot this guy. See how much fucking damage I just did? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And not only that, but it actually did transfer to the servitor. So if this had worked out, if this had worked out the way it sometimes does, where you do so much damage to the pet that the pet doesn't have the HP to actually transfer pain, and I'll show you a video where this actually happens. I'll actually show you a video here. Hold on. From Necro. But this is kind of like pointless to be going on and on about. However, I'm just pointing out that, if a summoner isn't UDing their pet, you can basically fuck them just by popping Insane Crusher. So here's versus a DA. This is a really shitty DA. If this doesn't happen, if I have my pet stopped over here instead of on top of him, I actually just win this matchup because Insane Crusher takes a long time to cast. So running up to a Necro to cast Insane Crusher, terrible fucking idea. Never do it. They will break your debuff talisman and fear you before Insane Crusher goes off, or before you can get away. But what's going to happen here? He's going to Insane Crusher, and I take full damage here. I take full damage. Why do I take full damage? Because my pet got hit too low to transfer all the damage, so it transferred none of it, and I took full damage from this hit. And I think you can see it. You're right here. FFA took 232 damage from Fart. No transfer. No transfer. Because my pet was too low damage to transfer, and my pet took the damage before me. Now, if your pet takes the damage after you, then it doesn't matter. It's not even relevant. But I'm not sure if it's just a tendency for the game to calculate damage in that way, or if it's actually the way the game will always calculate damage. I'm not sure. So anyways, what are you doing here? Insane Crushering, I'm staying on top of him. I'm going to Touch of Death him. I'm waiting out his guard talismans. And I'm not even UDing here. Obviously, you want to be UDing, but I'm just like basically playing it with guard because he has shit gear, and I know that I'm not even taking this matchup seriously. Honestly, not even taking this matchup seriously. Probably a mistake, because if he had gotten his second guard talisman off there, I could have actually died. But again, that's how easy these matchups are if you know what you're doing. Now here's going to be another player. It's going to be DA versus DA. Just a 5 debuff, just an easy 5 debuff. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing. This is what happens when someone doesn't know what they're doing. So what actually happens here is I think I start with Fear, right? Yeah, I start with Fear, which is weird that I would start with Fear. But the reason I start with Fear is because he's never trying to 5 debuff me. Actually, I'm not sure what I missed out on here. I'm on my second talisman here, and he Insane Crushered me. You can see that based on these buffs, right? He Insane Crushered me. So I'm not sure what exactly went on here, but I start with Fear because he's never trying to 5 debuff me. But because he tries to 5 debuff me, I juke behind that pillar to bridge the gap and make sure that my Fear is going to be up when I actually break the talisman, and he doesn't have an advantage because I didn't use my talisman. And that's going to be the win. Here, just fearing someone, then I'm gonna Insane Crusher him. It's a fucking joke skill, honestly. And this video is literally called LOL Crusher because it's a joke skill. So here, he's trying to. What happens here? Let me see. Oh yeah, I'm trying to avoid Insane Crusher here because it's really fucking annoying, but Insane Crusher can crit and essentially one-shot you. And a lot of really, really, really shitty DAs will play for the 15 to 20% crit chance you have on Insane Crusher when they know they lose the matchup. There are people, and there were 3 of them on Skelth doing the same thing. They won't try and 5 debuff. They won't try and juke you. They won't try and wait out talismans to play the 50-50. No, they're going to run up to you and insane crusher you. And if it crits, they win. And if it doesn't crit, they lose. It is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever experienced. But that's how this guy plays, and I think I'm just trying to avoid and make sure he can't insane crusher me. Like, that's literally what I'm trying to do here. Now, what I could be doing is starting the fight in party UD. Like, that would be the obvious way to do it, and I think that's how I switched to playing it later, is I started the fight in party UD to make sure that Insane Crusher wouldn't actually fuck with me. But still, like, it's a total joke. It's honestly a total joke. And so anyways, what happens here, the talismans are out. He doesn't recast the second talisman, so I don't recast the second talisman. Because if I begin the recast here, he can just step behind and have a talisman advantage. If he's not going to recast in this situation, I can't. Then he's going to come out, he's trying to spam, and I just step out and fear him. Easy win. So that's a pretty easy W there. Here's 3-0. This is against the guy whose character I was playing there. So what happens here? This is metagaming. He knows he can't 5 debuff me, so he's not even going to try. He tries to bait out my talisman. But what happens when you try and bait out talismans like this? You can force trades. In these sorts of open arena situations, you can force talisman trades. Now, against Necros, this type of strategy works really well against Necros. Okay, it works really well. This actually used to be the leading strategy on how to beat Necros. You step out of your base, you get a little bit, like if he's here, if I'm here and I'm the one trying to force this swap, okay, let's say I'm here and he's here, and I'm the one trying to force the swap. If he starts casting here, I can easily run out of range and he's not going to be able to fear me. And then I run into base and cast my own. So now I've got, he's going to have to cast his second talisman when I cast my first one, right? So he's gonna get to me with, like, 6 or 7 seconds left on his second talisman. He gets to me, I just cast my own second talisman, and then his talisman is out before he ever has a chance to 5 debuff me. This is kind of the idea. But because that works, because if you trade out both talismans like this, if you trade them out, the Necro loses. The DA casts Fear faster. However, in this matchup where you cast Fear at the same time, if you trade out talismans, all you've done is trade out talismans. But again, because he loses the 5 debuff battle, that's all he's trying to do. He's just trying to trade out the 2 debuff talismans and go 50-50 because he knows that's his only real chance. Now here, his talisman's going to go out. I actually did not mean to start strafing back towards him. I don't know why he stutter stepped here. This is like a glitch. I did not mean to do that. So I get into the corner and I can see, here's the thing. This is what trading talismans is about. I get into this corner. If I recast talisman here, he moves back, he gets into his corner, and then he recasts talisman and then pushes out, and I move back into this corner. And at the end of it, he's in the middle and I'm here and he has no talisman and I have no talisman. That's what happens. But instead, I don't recast my second talisman. I'm just going to push out on him, and he's falling all the way back. And this is how you actually fucking lose. This is how you actually lose. Well, I mean, because of the way the mechanics of it, this is not, like, you still have to fuck up. Because, for example, if he pops his talisman and runs out on me, I can again run back to my base. Or, okay, in theory, I can run back to my base and then pop my own talisman, but then he runs back to his base and again, they're trading. Or I have to push out without popping my talisman. Like, I'm in my base with 1 and he's got none. And I push out, then you just play the 50-50. The only thing is, if I have 1 here and he has 0 and I'm in the middle and he's in the fucking base, then I can use and push up on him. Now, the other thing I could do is he pops a talisman in here when we're 1 against 1. I wait a little bit and then I pop my own talisman and I run towards him. And I try and make sure that, I've got a 3-second advantage and I stay near him with that 2 or 3 second advantage until, his talisman's down and I've got my talisman still up and I try and fear him. However, he can just 5 debuff me. He can try and 5 debuff me. And also, because of the ranges here, because he's got 600 range, I'm going to have to be, like, back here when he's, like, I'm going to have to be, like, back here casting it as he gets close, and he can get to, like, here, and then he can just fall back, and the timing's not going to work out in this situation for him to actually get me. So here, neither of us have talismans, but I just want to, honestly, I want to keep arena control here. I don't know why I cast my own talisman. I'm just baiting out his, but this is actually giving up arena control. Because I cast my own talisman here of my own accord, it's actually a huge mistake. Because now I have to fall back into my base, and we're going to be 50-50, except he's going to be in the center, and I'm going to be in my base, which means I have less I have less mobility. He has arena control. He's in a better spot. So I just gave up my advantage by casting that talisman. But he's pushing up on me. And again, when you strafe out on someone, you have an advantage in fear. You can see I cast my fear faster. You have an advantage when you strafe out on someone. And I think I wide strafed here because his Panther's in the way, and that's like a geodata bug. It shows me it's hitting his Panther, but I don't think I'm actually stopped by his Panther. I think I just strafe out way too far. But anyways, we're going to fear each other here. I should be clicking off Zerk potentially in this situation. But he doesn't... You want to click off Zerk if he has you feared and he's going to be able to chain fear you. In this situation, I still want the extra cast speed and move speed from having Zerk. So here I'm running up on him, and this is just going to be complete chance. The way L2 works, it's like a foot thing. Some people say you cast off of your left foot. Some people say you cast off your right foot. Other people say it's whatever the fuck. It doesn't really matter. But the idea is when you're running at someone and he's running at you, or even if he's standing still when you're running at them, sometimes you'll cast really fast as soon as they're in range, and sometimes you wait half a second and then you cast. And that's why people think it's a footed thing. You have to get on your left foot to be able to fear someone. I don't know why the fuck it is, but I cast it before him. His doesn't even go off. And this is, I do have faster cast speed. I have, like an IS 13 or an IS 11 or whatever on my weapon. So it could be just that the server updated at the same exact moment, because that'll sometimes happen. You have a slight cast advantage, which almost never matters, but once in a while it'll update at the exact moment to cast fear and proc it the moment it hits on him, and it cancels his fear. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but whatever. And here is another example of what you want to do if your fear fails. This is a perfect example of it. So I land the fear here, fails. I'm already casting Touch of Death before I even do that. I shield stun and I hit stop at the same time. That's what I do. I shield stun, hit stop. Fear, fail, chain, shield stun. Pet still not hitting. Then I'm going to fear, then I can kill him. Okay, next fight. Here, this is an example of what happens if they try and Touch of Death you. I'm baiting him into the center here. I'm out here because if he Touch of Deaths me out here a little bit away from the pillars, it makes it impossible for him to get away but without me 5 debuffing him. If he's in the pillars, I can still try, but I'm not always going to be able to 5 debuff him fully because he can juke around that pillar, and he's going to have to do some juking, but it's possible that he avoids me. Out here, he's not avoiding me, I'm just 5 debuffing him. So he tries to Touch of Death, hamstring, fear, done. Here, and things start getting metagame when they know they can't 5 debuff you, they start getting super metagame. Here, open arena, I'm trying to push up on him. He's got a slight talisman advantage. He's going to run out, and I'm going to try and 5 debuff him here, but I don't have, I think, enough time on my talisman. Yeah, because he jukes around that corner, I don't really have enough time on my talisman, so I almost fuck up here, actually. I break his and fear just at the same time as he fears me. What I should have done is I should have actually shield stunned him here. I think that would have been the more appropriate attempt, is to shield stun him there when he runs past me, and that's going to prevent me from waiting for the cooldown of the second hamstring for quite as long as I did there. But in any case, that's going to be the double fear, and he gets out and instantly casts guard, which he thinks is super clever, and it's not that bad of an idea, but because I'm closer to the base than he is, I just run into base here and I guard. Now what he should do is he should, as soon as he gets here, he should be running back, but I think his camera wasn't adjusted to see that I was casting guard, and he doesn't realize it until too late. Now he realizes it, and he realizes that he's fucked, so he tries to run away, and I'm trying to 5 debuff him here, but right about here I go, oh wait, I don't need to 5 debuff him, I just need to stay close because I have a talisman advantage. So I run up, wait for it, fear, done. Fight's over. Okay, now what was I going to try and show here? Let's try and take a look. Oh yeah, I'll show you this fight. This is basically what happens when you play against a DA that just UDs. He's got epics, he's got full epics, right? So even though he doesn't have majestic, he's not getting stunned. So he's just going to be, chasing me down. I'm doing 150 damage per fucking nuke. I just did 114 damage with that nuke. Total fucking garbage. Total fucking garbage. See, how much damage do I actually do? Let's check. Oh, it does 800 damage. Which is, yeah, it's not 100. It received back 100 damage. It does 800, which is like not a lot. It's not enough to actually kill someone in this situation before the 20 seconds are up. That's the problem, right? You know, my second talisman is about to go down, and even with a crit nuke on him, it's not enough to actually get the kill. So I resummon the pony here. What you actually want to be like as a summoner, what you actually want to be doing here is spam resummoning your cubic. When the DA is UD'd, this will still do full damage. However, your pony, you know, any of this other shit is not going to do full damage. But your spam resummoning the cubic will do full damage. However, again, as a DA, this is basically the most obvious strategy to use. He UD talismans, then he's going to party UD, and there's no real way for me to kill him within the 20 seconds, and I can try and juke around a pillar, and this is really the arena where you have the best chance of winning, because there's pillars to juke around. I can try and run around forever, but he's going to catch me with a retarded-ass fear. Like, you see where he's fearing me from, and then I get feared. But again, this is the point of Pony. I've got pressure on him because he's low HP, and as a DA, you should never be losing this, because as a DA, you can heal yourself, you can fear, stun the pony, heal yourself, fear, stun the pony, heal yourself, and because he's still got his pet up, he's also got damage pressure. The thing is, if you're stuck in this fear, stun, heal circle, it takes a while before you start damaging again if you don't have a pet. That's one of the reasons having a pet, killing the pet is so important as a pony, but because he still has a pet, he can also be putting damage pressure while that's happening, and that's what you want to be doing as a DA. However, he's gonna fuck up horribly. You see how fast that fucking heal casts? This is ridiculous. But you can also full heal in this situation, in which case that pressure is completely gone. But he's just gonna fuck up, let me get out of fear, and he's just gonna lose. Like, fear doesn't even fail, he just fucks up. You just need to make sure you don't fuck up, basically. I think there's another matchup which is kind of interesting. Against Pro, I think. Yeah, so what you want to be doing a lot of the time, he's got party UD up. As this DA, this is kind of essentially the right idea. This is essentially the right idea. The problem is he has, somewhat worse gear. That's one of the problems. And he's not 5 debuffing correctly. If he was 5 debuffing me correctly, he should be able to 5 debuff me before I get out of range here. But he's not 5 debuffing me correctly, which means he's not able to prevent me from just running across the arena, So if you have the 5 debuff pressure here, then you want to be doing it. Otherwise, he doesn't even necessarily want to be pushing all the way up on me here, He doesn't need to be running into my base in this situation. As a DA, instead of running into the base, he can push up, force me to use the guard, and then he can stay out here. He can stay in this general area, and that way, you stay. Basically, what you want to do, what you can do is you can try and stay over here, so that the summoner can't nuke you, because if you stay here, the summoner can nuke you from back here, which can cause some problems. But if you stay over here, the summoner can't nuke you in this situation, while you're making sure that he can't run across the arena. Because if the DA is back here and the summoner tries to run across, DA can kind of be juking back and forth, right? And the summoner tries to run across, you just chase him and it's easy. And even if you get stunned, as long as you don't get stunned for too long. But because he gets way back here and then he gets stunned, I create the space easily. That's why staying, back out here, around the corner and back a bit, gives you a little bit more opportunity to make sure that if you do get stunned. But I'm not sure that's necessarily the perfect play. The perfect play is to have Fortitude up and not get fucking stunned. With BW and Fortitude up, you shouldn't be getting stunned. I fail one stun, but the second one lands, and then once my guard talisman is up here, he's getting kind of low, but he can get me feared. He just fucks up here. He can actually get me feared. This is what's going to happen against most DAs. This is how most DAs should be playing. He's playing it mostly correctly. He's got worse gear, so I'm doing more damage, and he doesn't have full stun resist. If this stun doesn't land, he 100% gets me feared, right? That stun landing is the only thing that saved me from losing this fight, is the fact that stun landed, which created a little bit of distance and gave me a few seconds to actually, not be feared, and then he turned around and used fear on my pet, and then he just fucked himself there. So what happens here? There's the UD, there's the guard talisman. There's the party UD. Again, this is why I would be double talismaning unless you have perfect gear. Double talisman just to prevent this stun here. So I'm going to get to the other side, and when I get to the other side, then I'm going to be able to pop my second UD guard talisman. And because I haven't popped my second guard talisman yet, he's just creating some space. He's going to try and heal himself up back to full before he pushes me, I think, right? But it's kind of tough. Yeah, it's pretty tough in that situation. So the other thing you can try and do against summoners in a lot of these scenarios when you're playing against them is you can try and against Warlock. What can you do against Warlock? Warlock, similar to Phantom Summoner, has no kill pressure unless he lands Root or he lands Anchor. So you can mirror guard talismans, and then you've got 20 seconds down. He's got 20 seconds down. Both of you have no guard, and you put on, please, for the love of God, put on Doom and pop Fortitude. You're not guaranteed to win the matchup, but you're not going to get rooted consistently, and you have at least some anchor resist, and you should be able to buy yourself enough time to land Fear because your guards are both down at the same time. Similar to the Phantom Summoner matchup. Okay, is there anything else going on here? Not really. These are mostly... Oh yeah, this is another example. Like, this is a DA. This is how the matchup goes a lot of the time. So I'm going to pop one. He's in Doom. Shouldn't be in Doom. He's going to get stunned. But the damage pressure just isn't there when you can pop party UD. He doesn't even pop party UD, actually. He just, this is what you want to do, right? He fears the summon. He fears the summon here because I'm waiting on my second guard talisman. And honestly, a lot of elemental summoners can kind of troll themselves by waiting too long to pop their second guard because, you know, you as a DA can control that summon and give yourself a little bit of breathing room and even heal yourself a bit and, you know, put pressure because he's not popping his second guard, right? And actually my second guard gets canceled here by the pet. That's why you always want to have your pet on the summoner and attacking when you can, so you can cancel the second guard. You can cancel guard when you can. So now juking around the pillar, my pony's going to go after him, but again, you can permanently keep a pony, you know, controlled in these situations, you know, just by stunning it nonstop. And worst case scenario, your stun fails, in which case you fear it and then you just avoid. Like if he fears my pet here, I want to try and resummon a pet, or I want to try and, you know, come around and nuke him a couple times or something while his fear is on cooldown. So all you as a DA have to do, you know, if you really need to, if you're feeling really pressured and your stun fails, then you fear it and it's not that big a deal. Or you can still chase after the summoner and you just chain shield stun, and then, I mean, even just landing chain, even if shield stun fails, you can then fear him. What it does mean is that when you fear him, there's going to be a little bit of cooldown on your stun, which means that he'll get a nuke off, but, you know, that shouldn't be that big of a deal either. But what you don't want to do is, again, be in Blue Wolf. So he's in Blue Wolf, and I just land a stun, and he just loses. Or he's not in Blue Wolf, he's in Doom, so I land a stun, and he loses. Now, the one last thing I'll mention is you can actually kind of fuck with summons a little bit. So if you get the summon to this side of the pillar, and so basically you run around the pillar, and then you run like this. This is how it goes, like that. The pony is going to get to this side of the pillar, but behind you. So it's going to be here, and you're going to be like here, and it's going to like spaz out as you get around this corner here, and it's not going to be able to follow you consistently. You can see I do this here against this pet. Like it gets to, what happens? Let's see. If you do it correctly, if you're running around the pillar quickly, it's going to get to that back corner, and you can see it's kind of spazzing out whenever it gets to this back corner. And there should be a situation where I switch pillars here. Yeah, it should be this one. Yeah, I think I switch pillars here. So there, I juke around, second UD. Yeah, you see I get it to that back corner there, and I switch pillars, and it's going to be able to land one nuke, but look at the space between me and that pony now. The pony's like way over here, and I'm here, because it took a little while to get around that corner. All summoners are going to be spamming nuke in that situation. It nuked, and now it's way the fuck away, and you can actually also try and glitch it. So the pony's coming in like this, right? It's trying to come in like this, and the summoner's trying to get it to spam nuke. And what happens is it's got the same like geodata bugs as mobs, okay? And you notice sometimes when you're pulling trains or something and a mob gets line of sighted, it will run the opposite direction. This happens when the line of sight is very small and it thinks it should be able to see you. And what it does is, because I'm so close to this corner and it's here, it's trying to strafe out. It's trying to strafe out and hit me like this. It's trying to strafe further and further. And I think you can, with practice, consistently make a summon do this to you. If you, again, juke around the first pillar, get it to take a while, you come to this angle here, or if it's coming around this side, you come to this angle here. I think you can consistently make this happen. You can see how far that pony ran out because of the geodata. Because of the fucking bugginess of the mobs. The other thing you can do that's a little special trick that I'm not going to explain to you how to do, but there is a way, if you do it correctly, to make it look like this. You see how this pony's over here on my screen, but it's actually hitting me? You can actually do that with your player model as well. It's pretty bullshit, but you can definitely catch yourself on the corner of a pillar here, and it'll look like you're on the corner of a pillar, but you're actually chasing someone, and you can get a feel for where you actually are as compared to where it looks like you are, because on your screen, it's going to look like you're on that corner too, but in reality, you're not on that corner, you're chasing them down. You can actually fuck people when they're trying to juke you around pillars when you do this type of thing. So that's it.